Hello, everyone. Hi, Christopher. Welcome. We're going to give everyone a couple minutes here to trickle in to join us here today. But welcome, Christopher. Where are you calling in from? Hello, Joyce. Welcome. Hello, Roberta. Hi, everyone. We're going to give everyone here a couple minutes to trickle in. I just asked Christopher where he was calling in from. Joyce, Roberta, I'd love to know. Where are you calling in from? Chicago. Hi, Christopher. I think you were on here last time. Welcome. Hi, Megan. Hi, everyone. We're going to have a great discussion here today. So, like I said, we'll give about 30 seconds to a minute for everyone to come in, give everyone a little more time to come off lunch or maybe just be going on their lunch here so they can join us today. I did enable the live Q&A down below. And if you're more comfortable, you can always ask a question anonymously. We're going to try to keep everything kind of in one thread, although I'm pretty good at toggling back and forth between comments and questions, but you can even drop comments into the Q&A here today. That is fine. But I see Joyce is saying she's calling in from New York. Welcome, Joyce. And Roberta is in London. Wow, great, great to have you join us, Roberta. Thank you. All right, Megan, where are you calling in from as we're waiting here? And then we're going to get started because I want to be mindful of everyone's time here today. All right, let's get started. Like I said, the Q&A is activated. So if you're more comfortable, you can drop in your questions or you can even put your comments down there in that thread too. So that way we keep it all in one thread. So we're pretty consistent, like I said, but I'm pretty good at hopping back and forth. Just like Megan is saying, she's calling in from Kansas City. Welcome, Megan. But I hope to have a really lively conversation here today while we are discussing growth strategies that really do last. Um, Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you haven't been on any of my sessions before, I'm Vanessa Dodds. A little bit about me: I have over 21 years of experience spanning across global corporations, government, nonprofit, and small business growth strategies and change management initiatives. And one truth I always do find is that growth is systematic. For it to be sustainable, it has to be systematic and it doesn't grow by accident. They grow by design. So before we really jump in, I think it's always helpful to get to know everyone here in the room a little more so we have a lively conversation. And really that's what I want it to be here today as I'm kind of walking through some guide points and my perspective and my experience and really some things I live by with growth strategies that stick and last, but I'd like to know who's in the room. So drop in the chat. Well, here we go again. Drop in the Q&A or chat. I'll find you. I'll find where you're at. What system or industry or sector are you in or maybe looking to move into? Or what type of a role or position are you in or aiming for? And I'll drop those questions here in the Q&A so you can see. But that way, we all know who's here today, and it's really going to guide us in our conversations as we move through this. Oh, I just closed Q&A. Here we go. I'm going to drop that in. You guys can go ahead and take some time and you can definitely drop that in. Like I said, that's going to help us as we're kind of going through so we get to know, we feel a little more comfortable about who's even in the room and who we're going to have a conversation with and what industries, because that varies too. And you're going to hear me say today, it's not always the professional growth, it's also the internal growth too that's going to really drive you forward professionally as just a person, as well as, the best leader, best employee, as well as the best individual you truly can be. So as you're dropping those in the comments or in the Q&A, like I said, I'll find you wherever you drop them. One more thing too that's going to help drive us consistently through this entire thread of conversation that I really do want to know and I'm curious about is what's one professional strength you've been constantly and consistently recognized for? And how could that become a personal growth system for you? Now, when I say personal, we're talking about you, but that does mean driving your professional growth forward as well. So I'm going to drop that also down in here. And we're going to see what everyone's responses here are. So let me hop over to the comments. Christopher, you said you are in tech, looking for a chief information officer, chief technology officer, or fractional of the two. Well, welcome. Welcome. My husband's also in IT. So definitely hear a lot of those conversations and live in that space of my own household. So I know a lot about that industry. I'm tech savvy, but I break a lot of tech. So, man, I need to have you on call sometimes, I'm sure. um, but yeah, I want you to all think about the rest of you that are here in the room. Like I said, we have Joyce and we have Megan also here. Drop in those comments. What industry and sector are you in? And also some of those other points that I'd love to hear about. Like I said in the questions over here, what have you constantly been recognized for that really could drive those growth strategies? That's going to be a thread here that we're going to lean into as we're talking. And if you've tuned in to any of my other office hours, you know that I've stated leaders and growth mindset professionals are avid readers. And one of my favorite books is The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. And a quote out of that is every person is the creation of their own thoughts. So, do you see how I'm driving into what does everyone always recognize you for? What's your thoughts about that? And how's that really driving your growth strategies, or is it? So, that's what I want to start to reflect on here today as we're moving through this conversation. Because really, the stories we tell ourselves about what's possible becomes the systems we build to get there, whether it's that I've helped a multi-million dollar organization or that I've mentored a colleague or someone entering into leadership. Growth always starts with three things, at least in my mind. And I'd love to share that with you here today. And I'd love to hear your feedback of if you agree, disagree. I'm totally fine with that. I'd love to have dialogue on that. And maybe some other guiding points that help drive your growth. So, number one for me is listening and assessment. I think that's the first part of growth, not just reacting, but analyzing what's working and what's not. And Christopher, being in a very analytical tech field, that should resonate with you. Alignment is number two, really connecting your actions to your core mission and values. And I hope your personal core values and your mission does align to your profession and where you're working or where you're seeking to work for. Because guess what? That's truly going to drive a higher level of happiness. At least that's in my experience. So I hope those do align. And number three, for me, really to drive that growth strategy is modeling consistency, because real change isn't just a one time effort, it's built through daily habits. And so, modeling that as a professional, as an executive, as a leader, I really do believe that's going to create that cohesive unit in any organization and company that you're a part of, and any team or any department. That's really going to help. So, I see a couple more comments coming in here. So, Joyce stated, she's in financial services and she's looking for sales relationship management roles, working with alternative investment managers. Okay, yes. And Christopher, oh, I need to be spotlighting these guys. I'm sorry. Here, it's hot. That's why I always say stay in Q&A because then I can spotlight it. But you guys have it in chat, so that's why no worries about that. So in chat, Christopher is saying people say that leadership is his strength. So we're hearing some things. Joyce, I'd love to hear what your strengths are too. Drop it in the Q&A, guys. We're going to hop back over to Q&A so then I can spotlight these as we're having this conversation moving forward. But Christopher, leadership. So hopefully some of this is resonating. So definitely some of the things that I just mentioned, I'd love to hear all of your feedback. Did those resonate? Those three things that I lean on really for growth strategies. Number one is listening and assessment. Number two is alignment. And number three really is modeling that consistency. And like I said, that's what I live by. And so, one of my other favorite authors, it kind of reiterates those few things, is seek first to understand, then to be understood. And that's Stephen Covey. And hence, you can see some of these models of these authors and these books that I'm reading. It's really developed who I am as a professional and my growth as a leader, as a person, as a team member, and really as a representative in my sector. Like I said, I'm in the change management space. So I work with all sectors. So working with all types of leaders, that's what helps me to create those growth strategies. So I'd love, like I said, we're going to move into the Q&A so I can spotlight these things. Of do you agree? Is it alignment, and listening and assessment and modeling? Are those reflective? Is that what you think of? And really think when you are seeking to understand rather than be understood. Um, I live by this every single day, and that's where growth begins, is in awareness, I believe. And for all of you in transition, looking for your next role in your next new sector that you've mentioned, Joyce, you mentioned you're transitioning. Chris, you're looking to go into the C-suite. So definitely some of you are in transition here. What patterns have really helped you thrive? So I'm going to drop this in the Q&A. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. And you can, like I said, we'll hop over there so I can spotlight this. So here's a few things that we talked about that are in the chat since I wasn't spotlighting. I wasn't doing a good job as the tech. So Christopher, you I failed on that level, but I'll get back onto the consistency here. So we've talked about this of your industry and everything. So I think we've highlighted all of that. I'll spotlight this one that we've been talking about as well. What's one professional strength you've consistently been recognized for? And thank you for everyone who's chimed in on there. And here's what I just dropped in. What patterns help you to thrive? So I'd love to hear your feedback on what patterns have really helped you thrive through your growth journey, through your next steps as we are moving forward here in your journey. Or also, what assumptions have maybe held you back? So let's be honest, we can be our own worst enemy, um, regardless of what role you're in. We are our own worst enemy. A lot of times we get in and we do that negative self talk, unfortunately, and we can bring our own selves down. So we need to get better at realizing what those assumptions that maybe are not true that are holding us back from our true authentic growth strategies. So I'm going to drop this also in here. And I see we have some answers to my last question. So let me see how get that up here. So the question I asked was, what pattern have helped you thrive? And I see that Christopher, let's see if we're going to switch over here. Of course, mine's there we go. Okay. So Christopher said he asks questions first, makes statements second is a good pattern for him. So listening, you're agreeing that listening, really kind of gaining all the information first from your team members rather than having that top-down voice. You want to hear it back from your people before really, giving any leadership. And I'm the same way, Christopher. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that is a pattern that Christopher has really helped him to thrive. I'd love to hear from anyone else on here, that is joining our group of what other elements of your profession have helped you thrive. So I will spotlight that question again for any of you to come back and chime in here as we move forward. That's the one question I did ask. And another one is, what assumptions have held you back in your growth strategies? And that's personal assumptions or assumptions about your profession as well. So that is something that we always got to be aware of. We have to have that self-awareness. And the last one that I want you to think about and drop some comments here as you're thinking about your growth strategies is, what lessons have carried you forward, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally? And I see some answers are coming in as I drop this in the Q&A here. So Christopher, thank you so much, Christopher, for dropping in once again into the Q&A. So something that assumption that has held him back is low self-confidence is holding him back. And like I said, I think we all have that negative self-talk and that moment of, you know, we don't feel confident to move forward. But I guarantee if we reflect, and that's why I want you to all do a lot of reflection here today as we're looking at the growth strategies that really make a solid foundation that are sustainable for you, is to think back of what have you been recognized for? What constantly are people coming to you for? These are things that are going to help you overcome, and like Christopher said, that low self confidence that we always do trip upon ourselves on doing, is go back and think of those positive things, those accolades, the reasons people always seek you out to come get answers. And that's going to help you to get over that kind of low self confidence or that negative self talk. So, absolutely. Thank you, Christopher, for showcasing that. Um, thank you. And I'm going to spotlight this other question that I did ask that I love to hear. What lessons have carried you forward? Like I said, it might be intentionally or unintentionally because, again, we do both. You know, if we truly do that self reflection of how we're growing and what we're telling ourselves, it means a lot on the next steps that we truly do take. So I'd love to hear those responses. Don't hesitate, drop them in the Q&A, or even some thoughts that you're having as we're moving through this. But Brandon Burchard reminds us that high performers are not lucky, they're consistent. So think about that. High performers are not lucky, they're consistent. So, again, that's why I'm talking through this here today. I want you to self reflect on what truly are your true attributes that are moving you forward. And it could be personal attributes, it could be professional attributes, and it can be one and the same. You know, like we heard Christopher say that he, really is a good listener, and that's what he's told as he moves forward. So thank you so much, Christopher, for sharing that. So any thoughts, don't hesitate on what lessons have carried you forward as we move through here as well. But growth often comes from uncertainty, right? I've been there too. And I've led large digital transformation projects where everything changed overnight, and the only constant was how we approach change. So let me ask you, when has uncertainty truly revealed those hidden strengths or new opportunities for you? So again, as you're seeing, guys, this is a lot of self-reflection that I want you to think about as you're building your growth strategies here. Some key questions that I'm asking, and hopefully that, like I said, if you're not comfortable, answering with your name showing, don't hesitate. The anonymous toggle is there. You can toggle over and you can answer that way as well. But I really would like this to be some dialogue back and forth as we're going through this here today. So, one last thing we're going to spotlight. Actually, there's a few more, but but what when has rather not what when has uncertainty really revealed a hidden strength that you have for a new opportunity for you to move forward, because that's where there's some little gold nuggets always, and John Cotter states that leading change, the rate of change is not going to slow down anytime soon. So that's truth, right? And it applies to your careers, it applies to organizational disruption, it applies to advancements, and it applies to life. It is how you choose truly to confront and tackle the change that will make the difference. The goal isn't to chase every single opportunity, it's to build your own internal system and professional system for navigating that change. So, again, if you've been in any of my other office hours, you know that I advocate for bringing your true, authentic self to work and showing up every single day at work and in life with that authenticity, and that transparency and truth of who you are, whether it's an executive leader, a leader, or an employee, speaks volumes in times of change, in times of growth, and just in life in general. That's your professional growth system and how you assess, learn, align, and communicate what brings you to the table. It's how you create trust in your next role before you even step into it or your next position or again like I said just authentically in life. So I'm going to hop in. I think I saw some other people responding here. Thank you. Christopher is hopping in. Christopher's the brave one here in the group. Thank you, Christopher, for stepping up and doing some comments here. So, Christopher, he answered my question. When has uncertainty revealed a hidden strength or new opportunity? And he said, I think that when building a team, I've learned to take a chance on people. Ooh, I love that one, Christopher. I love that one. And if you don't mind, I'd love to hear a little more about that. So when you talk about a chance, it be this is from my experience. So I want to hear if you're the same or if you have something different, chime in and comment in the Q&A here. But for me, it was maybe taking a little more of a shy person that wasn't as outgoing to, and they didn't quite think they were ready to be elevated up. But I recognized that they had the skill sets, the drive, the knowledge to be moved up into another position. So while they were a little apprehensive, it was then me mentoring them and feeling comfortable to move in that higher position. So I've done that before, and I'd love to hear if that's what you're talking about or what else you're chatting about, what you mean by this comment. But I absolutely, absolutely love that. Thank you, Christopher, for sharing. And growth is something that you design, not something that happens by chance, right? So that's what we're talking about here. Really, that reflection and it's being intentional in creating those growth strategies. And when that intentionality aligns with what truly is best for you, what you believe in, and those positions align too, that's where those growth strategies really start to stick. So here's my recommendation. Build systems that align to purpose, feedback, and trust. So, as we talk today, I want to help you really think about growth as something that you design, not just something that happens by chance. Again, it's that intentionality when you get the title or when the opportunity is right or when the right moments in life occur. I don't want you waiting for those right moments, right time, right title. I want you to really start to think about how is your growth strategies of where you want to go and really intentional and what all affects those growth strategies. Think back and reflect. That's why I want you to have this. If you take nothing else from this session here today, I want you to take away that self-reflection of going back. And I hope you snag some of the questions in, the Q&A too, and start to really think through that to drive you forward on how you're moving forward. So, jumping back into a few more of my favorite quotes here, Napoleon Hill, he says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. I'm going to say that again. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So again, that's what I'm saying. If you're not putting in the comments here, it's really thinking through this on your own personal side of how can I grow? What do I need to do? And really being confident in that. So Christopher, I want you to go back and take that, low self-confidence. I want you to start to really drive up that confidence because I know you got it. Definitely. But I know a lot of times when you're in that analytical space, maybe you're not as forward on saying things, but you've got the mindset and you've got the tech background, and I'm sure you have the smarts to do it. So it's maybe just finding some of those strengths. So Christopher, sorry, I'm drawing you out, but you've been the most active here in our chats. So I'd love to hear from anyone else that's in the group as well. I've learned that the real magic truly does happen when you build repeatable systems behind that belief, of whatever I believe I can achieve. So that one has helped me. And I hope it's helped you really kind of think back. Like I said, take this statement and figure out what is your purpose and how can you show up constantly. Um, Stephen Covey is another one, and he really drives home the idea and calling trust the one thing that changes everything. So, if you do nothing else, how can that growth strategy really instill trust and building trust amongst your colleagues, amongst your team members, amongst your, strategy partners out in community? How is trust really showing up for you as well? And I've seen that over and over and over again. People who model trust and curiosity really build opportunities that turn into transitions. So today, um, really about building your personal growth ecosystem, I want you to really think about trust being a fact of that as well. And I see Christopher has chimed in. Christopher, let's see. He's talking about how feedback is key for him. Says he always wanted to be a top-notch coder, and I didn't value leading a team at all. A mentor once told him, "Why do you want to be a second-rate programmer when you already are a top-notch leader?" Oh, okay. Wow, that just spoke volumes to me. So again, you're talking about that self-confidence level. So you just wanted to go in and be the best programmer and coder, and they're like, "Wait, you're already a phenomenal leader. So you can guide everyone else doing that." And that was your mentor that stated that. So again, these are the things I'm talking about from the very beginning. What have people constantly been telling you that really can drive your growth strategy? How can you hold on to those nuggets and those comments to really build your self confidence, your esteem, as well as your portfolio, then too, to instill that back down to all of your people if you're looking to move into leadership as well in executive positions. So wow, thank you, Christopher, for sharing that. And like I stated, I've seen the trust factor over and over again. So I know we're coming up here on the end of our time, but one thing I'm looking through, I have some guiding questions here. I'm looking through some things of what I want you to comment on this question here. What is one big takeaway as we are looking to wrap up here today of we've talked through gaining that self-confidence, getting rid of all those, you know, maybe assumptions we have about ourselves that aren't always so true, that is holding us back. What can we think about on that level and really look at our portfolio of what we've done in the past and also what we want to do and our personal, even mission and core values? How can that drive you forward and create those growth strategies? Really building trust into that growth strategy to move you forward. So, the question I'm going to spotlight here is, what is one of the biggest takeaways? I'd love to hear that you're walking away with today. Did you walk away with anything of value that we talked about that maybe resonated that you didn't think about or gave you the aha or I've thought about it, but I just haven't really been practicing that here today. That's going to help you build that growth strategy, not only professionally, but also personally. Because, like I said, I think a lot of times they coincide and they have to coincide. If you're not showing up as that true, authentic self, as I truly do believe, and bringing the true, like I bring Vanessa that's sitting, at home hanging out with my friends and my husband to my work environment as well. So you know me as one person, not the Vanessa at work and the Vanessa at home. So you're showing up with that authenticity. I'd love for you to think about that and what really has resonated with you here today. And thank you, Christopher. I see you jumping in here again. And you said growing is a system you need to build. It is. So while you're in that analytical mindset, I don't know that a lot of people think about that as the growth strategies are really systematic and they're buildable, right? So we think definitely in your line of business and tech, and you absolutely know it is a systematic approach and you're used to that. But a lot of times we don't even think about it as growth, whether it's the internal growth or the professional growth, as being as systematic. So, yes, growing as a system. That is fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I do realize we are coming down here at the bottom of our half an hour here together. So thank you, everyone, for joining me today for building growth strategies that last. And I hope you're walking away with not only personal growth strategies, but a framework to help you build organizational growth in every sector that you're in or looking to transition into. And I've mentioned quite a few of the books here, so I'm going to actually drop the authors, the books, and kind of what their core purpose was that I talked about here today, so that you can snag them if you haven't read them. I definitely highly recommend you check them out, or at least put them on your audio book. And then some that I didn't, that actually have been some driving forces in my profession here. So let's see if I can get these dropped in. You can go ahead and snag them. And while we're wrapping up, I'd love to hear, are there any books that truly, or authors that have driven your profession or your daily mindset of moving forward? You can drop that in as we're wrapping up here. But I really have enjoyed our conversation here today, and I hope you have as well. And if you're ever interested in, connecting with me further for conversations, you can find me on subs.com at Vanessa Dodds, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Vanessa Dodds. I'm always a message away. And really, thank you everyone for hanging in there. And I hope you really make it a great day. So I'm going to hang here. I'm going to spotlight this so you can grab these books. You can snag those out of the chat and you can see what all I put in there. And kind of like I said, it's the quotes that I mentioned, the books, and the core ideas of the themes. So these are really some of the few that are my guiding points for my leadership, as well as how I show up authentically every single day. So I hope that these are some books that you go out and grab, or some that you have already read. Um, and like I said, I understand that we are coming up on our time here, but if you have any book that comes to your mind, last 30 seconds here, drop it in the comments if you'd like to share any of the books or comments or quotes that really has inspired your life and your profession. You can drop those in. I'll wait 30 seconds, see if anyone wants to share. Otherwise, like I said, I hope you've enjoyed the session here today. I know I really have in the conversation, and I wish you all the best in your next steps in your transition and really creating those growth strategies. I'd love to hear feedback from all of you as you go back and reflect. So thank you, everyone, and make it a great day. I'll let you get on with your day. Oh, hold on. Joyce has one. Sorry, everyone. Hang on for 30 seconds there. All right. So, Joyce, thank you so much for sharing. And it says start with why Simon Sneak. Yes, yes, absolutely. I know that one too. Thank you, Joyce, for sharing. And also, you have another one here. Thank you, Joyce. We'll spotlight this one. Think Again by Adam Grant. I don't know that one. I'll have to go out and snag that one. So, thank you for sharing. Thank you. All right, everyone. If you're still on here, thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Take care.